It's Hexy. So let's talk about one of the VUCA simulation games that they sent me. And I was going to play the Donnerschlock, but Rough Swordsman and Blue Tweezers are playing that right now. So I figured, they got that covered. So let me go back and it was either going to be Theseus, Operation Theseus, or Aachen, Crossing the Line, Aachen 44. I punched Aachen first. And I think this rule set is similar to what the Across the Bug was that Kevin Moe were sort of demo playing. Um, and Hexy came to a real phenomenal conclusion today about rules reading. So I'm one of those that likes to take the rule book, highlight things as I go. Maybe while I'm sitting there watching something, sports or something like that. And then I realized after reading this entire rule book in like no time at all and comprehending it that I didn't have the TV on. I wasn't sitting in front of a computer looking at the internet. And the comprehension without having to highlight a bunch of stuff, which I do have some stuff highlighted, but I didn't, it was really important things, that I picked this game up pretty quick. All right, so the core of this game is your operations or activations to be more specific, okay? So what I did was I played the quick little scenario where the Americans are doing everything and the Germans are just floating wooden ducks sitting on a pond for you to shoot at. It just depends on whether you actually hit the ducks or not. So you have the charts here, and they also have the stuff on the board edges too, in case you just want to use the board edges. So you're really only using for this game, you have these two markers here, but you don't have to worry about initiative. Interdiction, you don't worry about that. But you have this activation marker here. That's really the only one that's concerning you. Now, this activation marker is for the first difference, is the big red one. It starts at 7. The scenario allows you 5 activations. There's no big sequence of play. You're just activating the big red one. And if you haven't won the game by the time you've used 5 activations, you need to play again. All right. It also says that if you win the game on your 5th activation, you should probably try again and do better. Okay? So we're not going to talk about that just yet. So do you get an activation? You have a chart that you roll on. So we'll take the big red one. They started with 7 activations, okay? Like I said, you're only going to play 5. So on your card, the cards are great. Look at these things are stock, man. This is great. So you have a chart right there. And you roll a dice and you compare it against the activation level. And then the number on the left side is how many action points you get. All right. So then once you do that, you go back to your card or your chart up here. And you move your activation points down to whatever you rolled. All right. Then when you're playing the game and you do activations, you have also on that chart what it costs to do things. Pretty simple. All right. You want to move one unit in a formation, or you want to move a stack from the same formation, it costs one action point. You want to do a hasty attack, that costs 1 action point. You want to do a prepared attack, that costs 3 action points. So your chart, there's like 8 items, 7 items that you can do, okay? So it's pretty simple. All right. Now, here's one of the coolest things about this game, and I realized while I was playing it that I don't think I've ever played a game that has this mechanic in it. Most games when you play them, when you drive the defender out of his hex, you get to advance into it. Not this game. Not necessarily. So they have what they call battle victory here, and that is the side that has the lowest result on the combat results table is considered the battle victor, okay? The battle victor gets 1 additional action point that you either use it or you're going to lose it. And you can mix it with action points that are remaining on your card over there. So if you had 1 action point left after you did an attack and you won the attack, then you have another action point. So you can use that, and you can use the 1 still remaining on the chart and use 2 action points. Or you can just use the 1 for that unit, maybe move him, or maybe you don't do anything with him and you just go back to your 1 action point on the card and you do another action with another unit in the formation. All right, the formations you can see have color codes, okay? All these German 326 were green, all of these units, which really none of these did anything. white ones are independent, and the big red one over here is all red. All right. All right, so you're going to notice on the map here, I just used these markers here. I had them marked as on the VP side. Those two were taken by the Americans. The objective is to take these three. I did not take that third one. I got a unit sitting right there that won the battle. So here's how this happened. On the last combat, I had to do a hasty because I only had one action point to use. All right. Well, the combat dice roll, he had a 1-step loss. He had a 2. They were both red. All right. I'll show you on the combat chart. You got numbers that are in red and black. If a number is in red, they have to take an efficiency check. Well, you always do the defender's results first. So this guy here, he had 2 strength points. He took his first one, which is mandatory. Then he did an EC check. All right. He failed the EC check, so he had to do a forced retreat, which didn't matter. He was either going to retreat or he was going to lose a second step. If he loses the second step, he was eliminated. So he ended up retreating, and he's disrupted, all right, because he failed his EC check. This guy won the battle. He was on his grand old wonderful side right here, and he had 5 strength points. So he took 1 loss. It was red. So he went down to a 4. We rolled for he attacked from this hex here going that way. So he rolled for efficiency and he failed it. He had to retreat. And when you fail the EC, you become disrupted. So you have to retreat in the nearest direction towards the supply area, which is this way. So he could have gone this way or that way. Well, naturally, I know that he won the battle, so he's going to have 1 additional action point. So I moved him back up the road towards the thing. And then I said, yeah, now I get that 1 action point, and I'm going to move him in there, and I'm going to take that victory location. And even though it was the 5th activation, we were going to win the game. Well, guess what? Disrupted units can't move. So the action point was wasted. And that took the Americans to 0 action points at the end of their 5th activation, and the game was over. And so, so not only did I not do it before 5 turns, but I didn't actually do it at all. So according to the rules, it says, you stink, you need to play it again and try to get better. It just says you should try it again and try to improve your result. So this scenario, and this is actually good. I mean, a lot of games have introductory scenarios, but this one was simple. It gave you the core mechanic of the game from the attacker's perspective only. The defender, like I said, they're just decoy ducks sitting there that you're going to shoot up. Whether they hold or not, well, it's, the only decision you're going to make is if they're going to retreat or take another step loss, should that be an option, all right? Like I say, if you have to roll an efficiency check and you fail, you're going to retreat. So the Americans Big Red One did drive them out of all the victory locations, but they couldn't take that one. It does say, though, that hexes that are within the zones of control of both units are shared control. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do actually take that. Regardless, it was 5 turns and I didn't do it. So, all right. Interesting other thing about this game is when you do combat, you have these chits you draw. Each side draws 1, okay? And as you can see, they have 3 columns. The first column here is the efficiency rating of the unit, okay? Front side is 2 through 4. And the back side is 5 through 7. Well, all the big red ones are 7s. And then the 3 columns are, for the attacker, it's hasty. It is, hasty, regular attack, second column, prepared attack is third column. And those are multipliers of their combat strength. So these 6 strength units, 7 effectiveness on a prepared attack, were now 18 strength units. All the Germans were 3s. And the first column is if they're disrupted. The second column is a regular defense, and the third column is if they're in an improved defense, which they were not. All right, you got a terrain modifier for the dice roll, so you figure out your strengths. From your strengths, after you use the chits, and once the chit's used, you throw it back in the cup so it can be drawn again. You get your odds, and you take the odds down like in most games. Okay, if you get fractional numbers when you're doing the strength, you round up to the nearest whole number. So which I haven't figured out yet how I would get half, but that's what you do. All right, so you do that, you get your odd. Then you start doing die roll modifiers, right? Terrain, headquarters support, all right? In a prepared assault, you get the full support of the headquarters unit. In a regular attack, you get half of it. You also get combat support from units that are adjacent in the same formation, that are adjacent to you and adjacent to the defender, okay? Or adjacent to the defender. So, you know, these two guys here were side by side attacking and they weren't disrupted or whatever. He would get a +1. If it was prepared, you'd get a +2 for each unit. And you can have it on, doesn't matter how many units are adjacent, you can get a +2 from each one of them for a prepared die roll modifier. So if you had 2 units that could support you in your attack, you get +4. And you have the same thing that works under different circumstances for the defender, +1 and +2. For most part, they have to be out of the same formation, which is the big red one. If it's a prepared assault, you can get a +1 from a unit that's adjacent that's not from your same formation. Right? I don't know how often that's going to happen, but it might. Didn't have to deal with the independent units this time. Didn't have to deal with the armor superiority in this game because the infantry and stuff, they only have anti-tank support. And you can see the Germans have 0. The Americans, most of these guys have 0. He had 1. But anti-tank cannot get armor superiority on its own. All right? You have to have tank first. So, not painful. Actually, I read the rules and I comprehended the stuff. I think I sent a text message over Facebook to Patrick Gebhardt from the company. And bless his heart, because I know it was midnight there when he answered me. He answered me and gave me a clarification. I mean, took him, I think, less than 2 minutes to respond back to me. And I was off and playing. And I just, you know, they say you can play this thing in an hour. I played this thing in less than an hour. And now I'm going to set up, I think, a regular scenario and play it. Components, phenomenal. Everything, there's no paper in this game other than the rule book. And even the rule book is the glossy, slightly heavier stock paper. Of course, I printed off. You can go to the website and you can print off the rules. And I made my own little book as I usually do so I could highlight some things. All the player aid cards are, what, 1/8 inch maybe stock, 16th inch stock. All the player aids, every one of them are. All the counters, what are these? Are these 5/8 inch, I guess? 5/8, 3/4, I'm not sure, but they're big. They're clean, they're legible, they're easy to comprehend, they're easy to understand, easy to read, right? All your charts are on 2 cards, front and back. And then your charts for accounting for your actions and stuff like that are right there. All right. The depth of the game is not, it's not mind-bending. I could see where playing through a larger game, doing the calculations, but let me tell you something. Those of you that have played Goss and seen some of the other games that I've played, this calculation, it's not your simple 3-to-1 roll the dice. All right. You know, it's 3-to-1, it's die roll modifiers, it's figuring out strength, but trust me, it's not that severe. Now, would I want to try to do this with some big monster game like this? That could be tedious because your like I say, your units have activation levels. Because you'll notice that this time record chart over here only has 8, looks like 8 turns on it. But if each of your formations has 7 activations, all right, that's almost like playing if, you know, there's, what, 4 American formations over there? 4? Well, these 2 and these 2 here. That's 28 activations. That can be like 28 little tiny game turns. Now, don't freak out because you're not doing all that much in one of those activations because, you know, if you're going to move one single unit, you're going to burn 1 action point. And when you're only getting, the most you can get is 7 action points, and 3 of those to do a prepared attack or 2 to do a regular, and then everything else is pretty much 1. If you need to relocate a headquarters, which is another interesting rule in this game, you don't move headquarters and they can't move with units. If you need to move a headquarters, you got to do an action that's called a relocation. And then you see that headquarters right there, he's got a 3. You're going to burn 3 action points to relocate him, and you just pick him up and move him. Now, there's certain, you know, line of communications type rules for how you can move him, pick him up, and move him. But they are important because units have to be within that command range, which is 15, in order to do certain things. Outside of that, it's a little harder for them to perform any actions at all. All right, so anyhow, check it out. This is Crossing the Line, Aachen 1944. This one's by VUCA Simulations. Every component in this game, even the little slide bar for combat results, which you can slide along, and it gives you all your little things. So that way, sometimes you go to the middle table and you're trying to cross with your fingers. Well, guess what? You slide that little chart right over there, see your dice roll, and you get your result. All right. So, good rules. I only had to ask one question. Great components, great counters, great artwork, great text, great symbols, beautiful map. I love the map. I looked at the Stalingrad map. That's a good looking map too. I haven't looked at Theseus yet, but I'm going to play a bigger version of this. Play one of the other scenarios in here that's a little bigger, and then we're going to come back to you with that. But for right now, all right, this crossing the line game, it fits the bill. If you can get your hands on one, or if you've got it and played it, let me know what you think of it. Me, I like it. And let's see if I maintain that after playing a bigger scenario. All right, let's get this thing up so y'all can see what Hexy's initial review of Crossing the Line from VUCA Simulations. Talk to y'all soon.